May 2nd, 2026, 1:17 in the morning, local time, Tel Nof Airbase, central Israel. Afterburners blew against the moonless sky as 12 F-15I Ra'am of the 119 Bat Squadron lift off in pairs for what the IAF will later call its largest single-night operation since the Lebanon front reopened in March. 70 military structures destroyed, 50 Hezbollah sites dismantled. 3 civilians lost their lives in the village of Sammaiyeh in the Tyre district, 23 kilometers north of the Israeli border. Al Jazeera will name them by dawn. The Israeli press will call the operation Black Saturday by mid-morning. This is the story you will read in the news. This is not the story Captain Eitan told us. Because at 02:49, 11 seconds from release, over a village called Mahmoudiyah, in an aircraft loaded with 8 munitions and cleared to drop on what intelligence had marked as a weapons cache, Captain Eitan, callsign Sting 2, canceled his release, pulled up, aborted his run, went home with all 8 munitions still on his rack. The radio call, 18 seconds long, Sting 2 aborted on 3, sensor anomaly, returning home asset intact. His squadron commander told him the next morning the abort would cost him his career. Then the Ground Recon team walked through the building Captain Eitan did not hit. They found 7 people inside. The youngest was 4 years old. Her name was Lina. She was sleeping in the front bedroom on the 2nd floor, exactly underneath where Captain Eitan said he saw a figure standing on the rooftop. We sat down with him 8 days later in a kibbutz outside Rehovot, his face turned away from the camera, first name only on the recording. His wingman has shown us a radar log we are not supposed to have seen. 3 days before this strike, Sergeant Liem Ben Hamo of the Golani Brigade was lost in a Hezbollah drone strike outside Bent Jbeil. He was 19. Captain Eitan flew that night for him. Stay with us.
You can call me Eitan. That is my real first name. My family name I am keeping because I am still on active duty, and the squadron commander has agreed to let me speak only on the condition that my last name does not leave this room. I am 32 years old. I have been in the Israeli Air Force for 8 years. I have been on the F-15I Ra'am, that is the long-range strike variant, the one we built with McDonnell Douglas for deep targets, since 2024. I am a captain. I fly with the 119 Squadron out of Tel Nof. We call ourselves the Bat Squadron. We have been flying the Lebanon front since March 2nd of this year, when the front reopened 48 hours after Tehran was hit. I am married to a woman named Maya. She's a doctor. She's a pediatric resident at Sheba Medical Center in Tel HaShomer on the trauma rotation. We do not have children. We have been trying. The fertility clinic is on the 2nd floor of the hospital where she works, and she walks past it on her way to the cafeteria every day. We have been married for 4 years. She is the only person in my life I have told the full version of what I am about to tell you. The night I am going to tell you about is the night of May 2nd going into May 3rd. The IAF calls it Black Saturday now. The Israeli press is calling it Black Saturday now. We did not call it that at the briefing. At the briefing it was just Operation Northern Watch, Phase 3. 70 plus targets, 12 sorties, 4-hour window. Authorization came down from the IAF Chief of Staff at 2100. Briefing started at 22:30. We were wheels up at 01:17. I want to tell you about the conversation I had with my wife before I left, because it is the conversation that I have been replaying for 4 days now, and I think it matters. We were in our apartment in Rehovot. Our apartment is on the 4th floor of a building near the train station. It is a small apartment. We have 2 windows. The kitchen window faces a parking lot. The bedroom window faces the back of a synagogue. Maya was making tea. She always makes tea before I leave for a sortie. She does not know I drink it just so she has something to do. I drink black coffee in the briefing room. The tea is for her. She handed me the cup. She did not look at me. She said, "Eitan, are you flying for the Liem tonight?" She meant Sergeant Liem Ben Hamo, from the Golani 13th. He was killed on April 30th by a Hezbollah drone outside Bent Jbeil. He was 19 years old. He was the 17th Israeli soldier killed on the Lebanon front since March. There has been a list circulating in the squadron, a printed list in 12-point font that the squadron rabbi prints every Thursday and tapes to the inside of the ready room locker. and we read it every time we walk in. Liem's name was added to that list on April 30th at 1400. We read it before the briefing on May 2nd. I said, "Yes, Ahuvati, for the Liem, for the others, for all of them." She said, "Eitan." She still did not look at me. "Be the man who comes home." I said, "Beseder Maya, I will be the man who comes home." I drank the tea standing up at the counter. I kissed her on the top of the head. I left at 21:55 for the base. I drove the route I always drive, Rehovot to Yavne to Tel Nof. 22 minutes, no traffic at that hour. I parked in the squadron lot. I walked into the briefing room at 22:25. The briefing was 4 pages of target packages, 12 sorties, 4 jets each, 4 targets per sortie. My sortie, the one I was leading the second element of, had 4 targets. Number 1 was a Hezbollah command bunker in Nakura on the coast. Number 2 was a munition silo in Yarun in the central sector. Number 3 was a building in Mahmoudiya that the intelligence package described as a weapons cache, dual-use structure, civilian footprint 0. Number 4 was a fuel depot in Bint Jubail, the same town, the same hill country where Liem had died 3 days earlier. The intelligence section was led by an officer I will not name, who reads the packages out loud the way some people read the Torah on Shabbat. He is good. He is precise. He has been doing this for 11 years. He has never been wrong in a way I knew about. The third target, Mahmoudiya, he read it without looking up. 2-story structure, masonry, ground floor weapons cache, intel confirmed by human source designated Lambda 7. Source has been active for 91 days, has provided 14 confirmed targets in the Tyre district to date. Civilian footprint 0. Civilian footprint 0. Cleared for 1 GBU 39 release. Fuse delay 0.4. Impact azimuth 270. Time on target 0250 plus or minus 2 minutes. I wrote it down. I drew the diamond around it the way I always draw the diamond around the third target on a 4-target sortie. I did not feel anything then. I want to be honest about that. I felt nothing. I drank the tea. I drank the coffee. I went to the equipment room. I put on my G-suit. I picked up my helmet. I walked out to the line at 0050, and I did the walk around on aircraft 295 with my crew chief, a man named Avi who has been on this aircraft since it was delivered, and the walk around was clean. We were wheels up at 0117. My wingman was a captain named Tomer. We had flown together for 16 months. Tomer is the kind of pilot who does not speak on the radio unless something is broken. He says 10 words a sortie. He has been my wingman through 3 rotations on the Syria border and now this one. I trust him with my life. I will tell you what he saw later in this story. But for now you should know. Tomer was on my right wing, 15 meters off, on a parallel track all the way north. We crossed the Israeli-Lebanese border at 0202, over a draw between Manara and Yiftach. We dropped to 29,000 for the run-in. The Mediterranean was on our left. The mountains of southern Lebanon were on our right. There was no moon. The night vision was good. The whole horizon was black except for the village lights, and the village lights at 0205 in the morning are very few. Most of the houses are dark. The villages, Nakura, Yarun, Sammaiyeh, Mahmoudiya, Bint Jubail, are just clusters of 3 or 4 lights in pockets in the valleys. From 30,000 feet you can see them like little campfires. You forget there are people sleeping in them. That is the part of this job that is hardest to talk about, but I am going to tell you because it is true. From 30,000 feet you forget there are people. You see the target package. You see the diamond on the moving map. You see the FLIR image on the lightning pod. You see the release point. You forget the sleeping. Target 1, Nakura. Hit at 0211. Bullseye. Bunker collapsed. No secondaries. Thomas' bomb, dropped 4 seconds after mine, fell into the same crater. Clean run. Target 2, Yarun. Hit at 0228. The munition silo. We knew the silo was real because the secondaries went on for 9 minutes. We were already northbound to target 3 when the cook-off was still going. I saw it in the rear view of the canopy. Orange, cherry red. A column of smoke I could see against the stars. I want to tell you something I felt at that moment, between target 2 and target 3, that I have not been able to explain. I felt heavy. The aircraft did not feel heavy. The aircraft was 4 bombs lighter. The aircraft was performing the way it always performs. But my body, in the seat, with the harness across my chest, felt heavy. I have flown 361 combat sorties in my career. I have done this exact run-in profile probably 30 times. I have never felt what I felt between Target 2 and Target 3 on the 3rd of May. It was not fear. I do not get afraid. The IAF screens for it. You do not get into 119 if you are the kind of person who gets afraid in the seat. It was something else. It was the feeling of, I am going to use the word that Maya used when I told her this part, because she is the one who put it into words, and I do not have a better one. It was the feeling of being looked at, from outside the aircraft, from all directions at once. The feeling of being seen by something that knew exactly where I was, and exactly where I was going. I checked the radar. There was nothing. I checked the threat warning system. There was nothing. I checked Tomer on the parallel track. He was steady. I checked my own instruments. Everything was nominal. The fuel was nominal. The weapons inventory was nominal. The pod was nominal. There was nothing in the cockpit that should have made me feel what I felt. I told myself it was fatigue. I told myself it was the cook-off from Yaroun playing on the corner of my night vision. I told myself it was the shadow of Liem, the 17th name on the list, the boy from Herzliya, the kid I had never met, sitting on the cockpit somewhere, the way the dead sit on the cockpit of every fighter pilot who has ever flown a sortie of revenge. We crossed the IP at 0245. The IP, the initial point, for Target 3 is a small ridgeline 3 kilometers south-southeast of Mahmoudiya. We came in at 26,000, descending to 23. The targeting pod was already slewed. The diamond on the moving map was steady. The aim point was the southeast corner of the roof of a 2-story masonry building on the west edge of the village, set back from the main street by about 30 meters, with a small dirt courtyard in front and a low cinder block wall around it. I called up the FLIR on the Lightning. I switched to white hot. I zoomed to maximum magnification. That is, if you have not flown a Lightning, about a 15-power optical zoom on a thermal sensor with about half a degree of field of view at maximum. You can see a man's silhouette from 23,000 feet. You can see whether he is standing or sitting. You can see, in good conditions, whether he is holding a rifle or a phone. I looked at the building. There was a figure on the roof. I want to tell you exactly what I saw. I want to tell you because I have now said this to 4 different people inside the IDF. To my squadron commander, to the IAF intelligence officer who debriefed me on May 4th, to the chaplain Avner, and to Tomer. And I have given each of them the same description, word for word. I have not changed the description. I will not change it for you. The figure was standing in the southeast corner of the roof, the exact corner where the GBU-39 was going to impact. He was facing south, facing me, facing the direction the aircraft was coming from. He was wearing a long, light-colored garment, white, in the white-hot FLIR, but the FLIR was at white-hot, so anything that was warmer than the rooftop would have shown white. He was warmer than the rooftop. The rooftop was at about 17 Celsius. He was at about 36. He was the warmest object in the frame. He was approximately 183 centimeters tall. I am estimating from the proportion of his height to the parapet wall behind him, which I knew from the target package was 80 centimeters. He was barefoot. I could see the heat signature of his feet on the rooftop very clearly. A footprint of warm tile under each foot, the kind of conduction print you only get from skin in direct contact with a cooler surface for longer than a few seconds. He had been standing there. He was not new to the spot. His hair was dark, short. It did not move in the wind. There was wind that night, 6 knots out of the west, but his hair did not move. I do not know what to do with that detail. I am giving it to you because it is true. His beard was short, trimmed, not long. Not the kind of beard you see on a Hezbollah fighter or a Salafi cleric. The kind of beard a working man keeps because he does not want to shave every morning. He raised his left hand, slowly, palm up, like a man saying, wait, like a man saying, stop. And on the inside of his left wrist, where the palm meets the forearm, there was a circular spot, cooler than the rest of the wrist, by about 2 degrees, a round, cool patch, the size of a coin. I want you to understand what this means in the FLIR. A scar, an old healed scar, where the dermis has thickened and the small capillaries have been replaced by fibrous tissue, has lower perfusion than the surrounding skin. It runs cooler in thermal infrared. By exactly the amount I was seeing, 2, maybe 3 degrees Celsius. A round, cool patch on the inside of the wrist, the exact size and shape of a coin, on a man standing on a rooftop in southern Lebanon at 02:47 in the morning, raising his hand toward an inbound F-15I. I sat in the seat. I did not breathe. I did not move my hand on the stick. The release button was under my right thumb. The release point was 12 seconds away. He looked at the lens. I want to be very precise about this because I have been a pilot for 11 years and I have looked at thousands of FLIR images, and I have never had this happen before. He turned his head, slowly, deliberately, the way a man turns his head when he knows he is being watched and wants the watcher to know he knows. And he looked at the lens of my targeting pod. From 23,000 feet, through a 15-power optical zoom, from a distance of approximately 7 nautical miles, slant range. He looked at me. His eyes, even in the white-hot FLIR, where eyes show as small black dots because the cornea is cooler than the surrounding face, his eyes did not show as black dots. They showed as small bright points, warmer than the rest of his face, warmer than his cheeks, warmer than his forehead, warmer than the crown of his head. 2 warm points, where the eyes should have been. The pod telemetry recorded all of this. I have requested a copy of the recording. The IAF has not given it to me. I do not expect they will give it to me. The chaplain Avner has told me, off the record, that the recording exists, that it has been viewed by 3 officers above the rank of colonel, and that the official conclusion is compression artifact in the IR sensor, source unknown, not for further distribution. Avner is not the kind of man who lies to a captain in his own squadron. At 02:49, 11 seconds before release, I pulled up. I want to tell you what I said on the radio, because the radio call has been transcribed, and the transcript is on the official debrief record, and you can verify it if you ever get access to a 119 mission tape from Black Saturday. I said, Israel Center Sting 2, aborted on 3, sensor anomaly, returning home asset intact. 18 seconds. That is the whole transmission. Israel Center came back in 4 seconds. The controller, I will not name him, but he was a major, and he was good, and he was calm, said, Sting 2, copy your abort. Sting 3 and 4, your target 3 is reassigned. Sting 2, return to base, climb to Angels 350, contact Tel Nof Tower on 273.5. I climbed. I leveled at 35. I looked over my left shoulder at the village of Mahmoudiya disappearing under the wing. I do not know how long I looked. I know I looked. Tomer came up on the interflight frequency, off the formation push, just to me. He said, Sting 2, you good? I said, yeah, bring me home. That was all we said on that frequency for the rest of the flight. We landed at Tel Nof at 04:18. The flight engineers came out and looked at the bomb rack. They counted 8 bombs. They looked at me. They did not say anything. The crew chief Avi looked at me. He did not say anything either. I climbed down the ladder. I walked into the squadron building. I dropped my helmet on the desk in the ready room. I sat in my chair in front of my locker, and I did not move for about 20 minutes. The intel officer, the same one who had read the target package, came in at 5 o'clock and asked if I wanted to do the debrief now or in the morning. I said morning. He said okay. I drove home. I got home at 5:50. Maya was awake. She was sitting at the kitchen table with the lamp on. She had been waiting up. She does not always wait up. That night she had waited up. I sat down across from her. I said, I saw someone, on the roof of the target. She said, who? I said, I don't know, but it was not an enemy. She did not ask me anything else for the rest of that morning. She made me eggs. She put me to bed at 6:15. She set the alarm for 9, because the squadron commander had me down for an 09:30 meeting in his office. The meeting that was going to end, 4 hours later, with Colonel Avi Baron telling me that an abort under sensor anomaly without recoverable evidence was, by the regulations of the IAF tactical doctrine, grounds for an investigation that could end my career. He was not angry. He was sad. He was the kind of sad a commander gets when he believes a pilot he likes has just thrown away 8 years of training because of a hallucination. He looked at me for a long time before he said it, and then he said it. Eitan, you know this might cost you. I said, I know, sir. I left his office at 13:14. I walked down the squadron corridor. I stopped at the window at the end. I looked out at the flight line at Tel Nof in the May afternoon and I thought, you know when you know you saw something, and you know nobody is going to believe you, and you know that the only person who saw it with you looked back through the lens from a rooftop 7 nautical miles away in white-hot infrared at 02:47 on the 3rd of May, 2026. That is the moment I am going to leave you with. The window at the end of the squadron corridor. Tel Nof in the afternoon. Me with my flight jacket over my arm, knowing I want to stop here. Because what happened the next morning, what the ground reconnaissance team found in the rubble of the targets that did get hit, and in the quiet courtyard of the building that did not get hit, is the part I have only told 4 people. Today is the 5th.
Before Captain Eitan tells you what he saw on that rooftop, one thing. We have spent the last 4 months collecting accounts like his. American pilots, Israeli reservists, Iranian defectors, civilians on every side, over 400 of them. We compiled the strongest, most independently verifiable, most theologically careful into a book, Real Encounters, Volume 1, 100 Testimonies of the Living Christ. The link is in the description below this video and pinned to the top of the comments. Free, no email, no payment. Read it tonight. And while you watch the second half of this story, write a name in the comments. Just a name. The name of a soldier you knew, in any war, on any side, in any decade. We read every comment. We will read yours. Now back to Captain Eitan, the rooftop, the targeting pod, the figure who turned and looked at the lens.
I slept 4 hours that morning, not well. I dreamed about the rooftop. I will not describe the dream. Maya woke me at 13:30 for the meeting. The meeting ended at 13:14. I told you about it already. And I drove home, and I sat on the couch for the rest of the afternoon, and I did not turn on the television. Maya came home from her shift at 2100. She heated up rice. We ate without speaking. I went to bed at 2300. I did not dream. I slept until 6. The IDF ground reconnaissance team for Black Saturday went into southern Lebanon at 0500 on May 4th, under joint cover with a UNIFIL escort, with the agreement that had been quietly negotiated through the French liaison officer in Nakura on the morning after the strike. There were 4 teams. Each team had a battle damage assessment officer, a forensic engineer, an intelligence officer, and a medic. The Mahmoudiya team was led by a major named Yoav Mizrahi. He is a reservist. In civilian life, he is an architect. He has been doing post-strike BDA for the IAF for 11 years. He is the kind of man who measures crater diameters with a folding ruler. He is precise. I am telling you about Yoav Mizrahi because the report he wrote on May 4th, a 6-page report with photographs that has now been read by the IAF Chief of Staff, by the Northern Command Commander, by the Military Advocate General, and by my squadron commander Avi Bar-On, is the report that decided whether my career was over. The team got to Mahmoudiya at 0820 in the morning. They walked the village from south to north. They photographed every structure that had been struck. There were 3 other targets in Mahmoudiya that had been hit by Sting 3 and Sting 4, and they made the BDA notes for each of them. Routine work. The 3rd target, the one I had aborted on, was on the west edge of the village. They walked to it last. The building was intact. 2 stories, masonry construction, cinder block perimeter wall, dirt courtyard, a small olive tree in the southwest corner of the courtyard, a chicken coop against the south wall with 3 chickens inside, a clothesline strung between the wall and the building with 2 children's t-shirts and a woman's headscarf hanging on it. The headscarf was orange. Yoav Mizrahi knocked on the front door at 0911 on the morning of May 4th. A man answered. The man was approximately 55 years old. He had gray hair. He was wearing a doctor's white coat. He spoke Arabic, French, and a small amount of English. He had a stethoscope in his coat pocket. The stethoscope had a small sticker on the diaphragm that said in Arabic, Dr. Khalil, Clinic of the Sacred Heart. He had been the village physician of Mahmoudiya for 19 years. The ground floor of the building was a clinic, examination room, small dispensary, waiting bench, mortar and pestle on a counter, a poster of the human anatomy on the wall, in French, a second poster, in Arabic, about the importance of vaccination for children, a third poster in English about hand washing, A small wooden crucifix above the door. Dr. Khalil is a Maronite Christian. Mahmoudiyya has a Maronite Christian minority. I did not know that before May 4th. I should have known that. The intelligence package did not mention it. The first floor, the floor above the clinic where the bomb would have landed, where the structural engineer Mizrahi later wrote in his report, would have produced complete collapse of the second floor structural deck onto the ground floor clinic with 100% fatality probability for occupants in the second floor sleeping zones, was the doctor's home, his wife, his mother, his father, his teenage son, his 2 daughters. His older daughter was 16. She slept in the back bedroom. The back bedroom faced east, away from the rooftop where I had seen the figure. His younger daughter, and I am going to slow down here because I have to say her name, and saying it is part of what I came here to do. His younger daughter was 4 years old. Her name was Lina Khalil. She slept in the front bedroom. The front bedroom was on the west side of the second floor. The west side of the second floor is the side that has a flat roof above it. The flat roof has a southeast corner. Lina was sleeping in the front bedroom on the west side of the second floor at 0250 in the morning on May 3, 2026, exactly underneath the southeast corner of the rooftop, exactly underneath where I had seen him standing. Yoav Mizrahi and the doctor sat on the porch of the clinic for an hour. The doctor brought tea. The doctor did not know, Yoav had not told him, that an Israeli aircraft had been 7 nautical miles south of his home, 11 seconds from releasing a bomb on his roof. Yoav decided not to tell him that. Yoav has not told him that. The Lebanese Red Crescent, on the advice of the French liaison, has moved Dr. Khalil and his family to a safe address in the Bekaa Valley. They have not been told why. They have been told only that the Israeli army made a targeting error in their village and that for their safety, they should relocate for 30 days. They have been compensated for the inconvenience. The compensation came through a third-party Swiss humanitarian fund that does not list the IDF as its donor. None of that family will ever know what almost happened to them. That is, I think, correct. That is not a story that helps anyone live. Yoav's report came back to my squadron commander on May 5th at 0800. It is 6 pages long. The conclusion paragraph reads, and I have it almost memorized because Avi Bar-On read it to me out loud in his office at 0930. Target 3 Mahmoudiyya, designated weapons cache, was confirmed on ground inspection to be a civilian medical facility with 7 inhabitants resident in the second floor apartment, including 2 minor children aged 16 and 4. Source designation Lambda 7 is suspected to be compromised. Counterintelligence investigation initiated. File number redacted. Pilot decision by Sting 2 to abort run is reclassified from sensor anomaly to operationally correct call. No disciplinary action recommended. Commendation eligibility under review. Avi finished reading. He set the paper down on his desk. He looked at me. He said, Eitan, you saved 7 lives. I am going to retract the insubordination charge. As of this moment, you are reinstated to flight status without restriction. The investigation will be closed by end of day. I said, Sir. He said, Talk to me. I said, I do not know what to say, sir. He said, Eitan, you were the only pilot in the sortie who aborted. Sammaiyeh was a real Hezbollah weapon stash, and 3 civilians in the next building over were killed by the secondaries. 3 civilians, a grandmother and 2 children. Sting 5 and Sting 6 are doing the formal MAG interview as we speak. They did everything right. They followed the package. The intel was correct. The secondaries were unforeseen, and 3 people died. They did everything right. I said, Sir. He said, and you were the only pilot in the entire op who, against the package, against the intel, against 8 years of training that says you trust the cell, said no. Why you? I sat in his office for a long time before I answered. He let me sit. He is a good commander. I said, Sir, I saw a man on the roof. He raised his hand. He had a scar on his wrist. I saw it through the FLIR. I saw his eyes. I aborted because I knew, with everything in me, that if I released, I would be killing him and whoever he was protecting. I do not have a better answer for you than that. I have tried to find one for 48 hours. Avi looked at me. He said, Eitan, were you raised religious? I said, no, sir. My grandfather was. My father was secular. I was raised secular. I light candles on Friday because Maya likes it. He said, have you ever in your life, before May 3rd, believed in something outside of yourself? I said, no, sir. He looked at me for a long time. He did not say anything. He stood up. He walked around to the front of his desk. He sat on the edge of the desk. He looked at the floor. He said quietly, in a tone of voice I had not heard from him in 3 years of serving under him, I have read 14 reports in the last 6 weeks from ground troops in the Northern Command, saying things they should not be saying. From Golani, from Givati, from paratroopers, from the engineering corps, from 3 different battalion chaplains who have started informal notebooks. There is a sergeant from the 13th Golani, a kid from Herzliya named Liem Ben Hamo, who was killed 3 days ago, whose mother has now told a journalist from Yediot that her son saw the same kind of thing in a fighting position outside Bin Jebel on April 20th. The journalist called me last night for confirmation. I gave her none, but I read the report. I read all of them, Eitan. He looked up at me. He said, I think you are the first one from the air. I think there are going to be more. I am not going to write that in any official document, but I want you to know I read your debrief and I read the BDA report, and I do not think this is a sensor anomaly. I think you saw what you saw. I am not going to ground you. I am going to keep you flying, and I am going to say off the record in this office that I am very glad you came home. I said, Sir. I stood up. I walked out. I closed the door behind me. I walked down the corridor to the same window at the end of the Squadron building where I had stood the day before, and I looked out at the flight line at Tel Nof in the morning sun, and I started to cry. For the first time since my grandfather died in 2014, I cried standing up at a window in a Squadron corridor with a flight jacket over my arm, and a call sign on my chest, and a wife at home who had not yet been told that the charge had been retracted. That was May 5th, 09:52 in the morning. I want to tell you what Tomer told me that afternoon. Tomer is my wingman. He was on my right, 15 meters off, on the parallel run-in to target 3. He was in the same release window. He was 32 years old like me. He had 340 combat sorties, fewer than mine but enough. He flew the same exact track, the same exact altitude, the same exact descent profile. The only difference was that his targeting pod was slewed to a different aim point, 80 meters southwest of mine, because he was the secondary releaser on target 3, backup in case my bomb hung up on the rack. I went down to the hangar that afternoon to do a walk around on 2905. Maintenance had pulled it for a routine inspection after the flight. I walk around my own aircraft even when maintenance is doing it. It is a habit. Tomer was already in the hangar. He was leaning against the nose gear of my aircraft with a tablet in his hand. He had been waiting for me. He said, Eitan, I have been thinking about telling you this for 2 days. I am going to tell you now. He turned the tablet around. He showed me a screen capture from the air-to-air radar log of his own aircraft. The log was time-stamped 0248 on the 3rd of May. There was a small return on the screen, 200 meters of altitude, that is sea level offset, so essentially right at rooftop height. Directly over the Target 3 building, the return was small. It was not large enough to be a helicopter. It was the size of a man. It had no rotor signature. It had no propeller signature. It had no jet exhaust. It had no thermal bloom. It was just a return. A small hard contact at 200 meters altitude, sitting still, on Tomer's radar, for exactly 4 seconds. It appeared at 0248.23. It disappeared at 0248.27. Tomer said, Eitan, I did not log it in the debrief because I did not know what to log it as. I have been a pilot for 11 years. I have never seen a radar return like this in my life. There is no aircraft signature for this. There is no missile signature for this. There is no drone signature for this. It is a person. It is the radar return of a person, standing in the air, 200 meters over a rooftop, for 4 seconds, and then gone. I looked at him. I did not say anything. He said, Eitan, I am going to tell you something else. When you aborted, when you came up on the interflight push and I asked you if you were good, I was already pulling. I had already pushed the stick forward, the way you do when you're going to abort, before you said anything. Because something in my own pod had, Eitan, I did not see what you saw. I did not see a man, but I saw light. There was a flash of light over the building, in my pod, at 0248. Not from the building, from above the building. A flash of warm light in the FLIR that was not consistent with any heat source on the rooftop. And in the 4 seconds before you called, my brain told me, and I do not know how to say this, my brain told me to pull. I had my hand on the stick. I was already easing back. I was going to abort, Eitan, 3 seconds after you did. I would have aborted on you. I want you to know that. I said, Tomer, why are you telling me this now? He said, because Avi told me about the BDA report this morning. I was in the office before you. I read it. There was a 4-year-old in that house. Her name was Lina. Eitan, I have a 4-year-old. Her name is Yael. She has the same haircut. I saw the photograph in Mizrahi's report. I have been sitting with this for 2 days. I want you to know what was on my radar. And I want you to know I am not going to log it. I am going to let it stay where it is. But you should know. He took the tablet back. He put it under his arm. He walked out of the hangar. I stood there for a while. I leaned on the nose gear of my own aircraft. I looked up at the FLIR pod hanging under the right wing. I touched it with my hand. The aluminium was warm in the May afternoon. I went home that night. I did not tell Maya about the radar log. I did not tell her about Tomer's daughter Yael. I sat in our living room at the kitchen table at 2100 in the evening, and I took down, from the top shelf of the bookcase, behind the folder of medical exam notes that Maya keeps from her residency, a Tanakh. A small leather-bound Hebrew Tanakh. It had belonged to my grandfather. He fought in the Six-Day War in 1967, with the Givati Brigade in the south, and he carried this Tanakh in the breast pocket of his uniform every day of his service. He gave it to me when I was 13 years old, at my bar mitzvah, in his kitchen in Holon. He died in 2014. He was 84. He was the most religious man I have ever known. I have not opened this Tanakh since the day he gave it to me, 19 years ago. I opened it that night, randomly, the way you open a book when you are looking for something and you do not know what. It opened to the Psalms, to Psalm 91. I read it in Hebrew, slowly, the way my grandfather used to read it on Friday nights, when I was a child, and he would sit at the head of the table in Holon and read the prayers in a voice I did not understand at the time, but I have been able to hear, all my life, in the back of my head. I read verse 11. Ki malachav yitzaveh lach, lishmorcha bechol drachecha. For he will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. I closed the Tanakh. I sat at the table. I thought about Lina Khalil, sleeping in the front bedroom, on the 2nd floor, with a roof above her, with a man on that roof, with a hand raised, with a scar on the inside of the wrist. I thought about the 3 civilians in Sammaiyeh, the grandmother, the 2 children. They had no man on their roof. There was no abort for them. Sting 5 and Sting 6 did everything right. The intel was correct. The secondaries were unforeseen. 3 people died. The guarding angel that Psalm 91 talks about, the one that was on the roof of the clinic in Mahmoudiya, was not on the roof of the house in Sammaiyeh. I do not know why. I do not have an answer for that. I asked the chaplain Avner about it 3 nights ago, and he said the only honest thing he could say. He said, Eitan, I do not know. Some are guarded, some are not. The Tanakh tells us this. It does not tell us why. I went to Isaiah 6, which was the chapter my grandfather used to say was his favorite. Verse 8, Hineni, Shelacheni. Here I am, send me. I read it. I closed the book. I sat for a long time. Then I said out loud, in our empty living room at 23:14 in the evening, in a whisper, in a language I had not used to address anything in my entire adult life, I said, Yeshua. Just the name. The Hebrew name. The way you say a name when you've been given it for the first time. I said it once. I said it twice. The 3rd time I cried. I want to tell you what I have done in the 8 days since. 2 days after the Tanakh, I drove to Jaffa. There is a small congregation in Jaffa, a Messianic Jewish congregation, in a converted apartment on the 2nd floor of a building on Jerusalem Boulevard, 3 blocks from the clock tower, that meets on Saturday mornings. I had heard about it from a friend of Maya's brother, who had attended one service 11 years ago and described it to me at a wedding. I went on May 10th. I sat in the back. I did not say I was a pilot. I did not say I was a captain. I sat in a folding chair against the wall with my back to the window and I listened. There were 18 people in the room. 12 were over 60. 6 were younger. The leader, a man in his 50s with a kippah and a talit and a brit hadashah open on the lectern in front of him, read from John chapter 10, in Hebrew, the Good Shepherd passage. He said the words, Ani hu haroeh hatov, I am the Good Shepherd. He said the words, Haroeh hatov noten et nafsho ba'adatzon. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. 2 women in the front row were crying quietly. A man across the aisle from me, older, maybe 70, with a number tattooed on his left forearm that I tried not to stare at, was nodding slowly with his eyes closed. After the service, an old woman came up to me. She did not ask my name. She asked, Achi, ata ba'al chaim chadashim? Brother, are you in possession of new life? I did not know how to answer. I said, Ani lo yodea. I do not know. She put her hand on my arm. She said, Tazor, anachnu kan kol Shabbat. Come back. We are here every Sabbath. I have gone back twice. I am going back this Saturday. I have not told the squadron. I have not told Maya completely. She knows I am going somewhere on Saturday mornings now, and she has not asked, and I have not told. I will tell her when I am ready to tell her. I want to be honest about that. I am still flying. I flew a routine border patrol on May 9th. I flew a training sortie at a range in the south on May 11th. I am scheduled for another combat sortie next week. I have not been over Lebanon since May 3rd. I do not know what will happen the next time I am over Lebanon. I do not know if I will see another rooftop. I do not know if I will see anything at all. I do not know what I will do if I do. I want to tell you the last thing and then I am done. I do not know what to do with this. I do not know if you will believe me. I do not know if it matters whether you believe me. I am not asking you to believe me. I am telling you what I saw. The pod telemetry exists. The radar log exists. The BDA report exists. The doctor and his wife and his mother and his father and his teenage son and his 2 daughters, including a 4-year-old named Lina Khalil, who slept in the front bedroom of the 2nd floor of a clinic on the west edge of Mahmoudiya on the night of May 2nd going into May 3rd, 2026. They exist. They are alive tonight. They are in the Bekaa Valley. They are eating dinner. They do not know me. They do not know who I am. They do not know that I almost killed them. They will probably never know. That is correct. That is, I think, the way it should be. But I want you to know. I do not know how he knew that family. I do not know how he knew Lina was 4 years old. I do not know how he knew her name. I am sure that he did. I saw him through my own pod, and I saw the scar on the inside of his wrist, and I know it was him. I do not need anyone to confirm it for me. I do not need a doctorate in theology. I do not need a rabbi to tell me I am right. I am a fighter pilot. I trust my eyes, I trust my instruments, I trust the BDA report. I saw him. And he gave me a choice. He raised his hand, he looked at the lens, he gave me the 11 seconds, and I made the right choice. That is everything I can tell you. That is the whole story. I am going to put my flight jacket on. I am going to drive home. I am going to kiss my wife. I am going to sleep. And tomorrow I am going to fly. Shalom.
That sentence Captain Eitan repeated, twice, in 2 different parts of the interview, I do not know how he knew that family, is the sentence that has been traveling, quietly, through the 119 Squadron Ready Room at Tel Nof for the past 4 days. It is the sentence Captain Tomer, the wingman, said when he showed us the radar log. It is the sentence the squadron chaplain, a reserve rabbi named Avner, called up from a yeshiva in Bnei Brak, said to us off the record on a phone call last Wednesday. He has now been asked to interview 3 other pilots from other squadrons in the IAF Northern Command. The Black Saturday operation is being investigated by IDF Northern Command on 3 counts. The Sammaiyeh strike, the one that took the grandmother and her 2 grandchildren, has been opened by the Military Advocate General's office. The Mahmoudiya target has been formally redesignated. The forward intelligence cell that called in the false target has been dismantled. Captain Eitan has not been decorated. His abort is, on the official record, the result of a sensor anomaly under investigation. The family of 7 in the apartment above the clinic in Mahmoudiya are alive. The 4-year-old in the front bedroom, Lina, is alive. They have been moved to a safe address by the Lebanese Red Crescent. They have not been told that an Israeli pilot saw a man in white standing on their roof. They will probably never be told. But Captain Eitan said something at the end of our interview that we are going to leave you with. He had stood up to leave. He had his flight jacket folded over his arm. He looked at the camera for the only time in the whole interview, and he said, "I do not know what this means for me. I do not know if I will fly again. I know that I saw him through my own pod, and I know that he knew Lina was 4 years old. He knew her name, and he gave me the choice. I made the right one, and that is everything I can tell you." If you are waiting for a sign, maybe he already has your name too. Read Real Encounters, Volume 1. The link is in the description. Free, no email required. Read it tonight. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Write the name of someone you have lost in the comments to any war in any country, and we will read it, every single one. The next video on your screen is the story of Sergeant Liem Ben Hamo's mother. He was lost 3 days before Captain Eitan flew this mission. Captain Eitan said, in the first hour of our interview, "I was flying for the Liem. Watch hers next. Same week, same front. Same presence." Until then, from everyone here, from Captain Eitan, from a clinic in Mahmoudiya that is still standing tonight, Shalom. We will see you there.